I'm sorry. This is a. There we go. That's what we
better.
meant to do. Hey, everybody. Welcome, Harrison, to Grab a Stack of Rock and 50 Years of Iron Maiden. Happy Friday and happy 4th of July to our American friends. Harrison, how are you doing tonight? Or this morning, as the case may be in Australia?
I'm doing well. I'm awake.
Excellent. And we're ready to rock today as we are doing not one, but two, but three, not four, not three, but four Iron Maiden live CDs today in a real live one,
Well,
a real
technically
dead one.
5 if you count the 2 live singles as separate CDs.
Oh, people, we've got a packed show for you tonight. As usual, though, when we do these live shows, I always like to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. And tonight, I just want to say that one of our two friends that had a surgery a little while ago is coming along very well in their healing. And I thank Grab a Stack of Rock Nation for sending your thoughts and prayers out. We're just really happy to hear some good news. On with the show tonight. Iron Maiden history is made with the first official live album since Live After Death. But we're not going to be doing them in release order. We've decided to tackle Live at Donington first because, Harrison, it was basically an earlier show than the majority of the rest of the songs we're going to discuss tonight. Am I right?
Yes, Live at Donington, it's the Fear of the Dark tour, and then a real live one is also the Fear of the Dark tour, but a real dead one is the real live tour mostly, and live one and dead one are basically a pair.
Right. So we're going to start with Live at Donington. Let's go through the facts and figures. Live at Donington recorded 22 August 1992. It was released over a year later on the 8th of November 1993, and it was the first release after Bruce's final gig. It was produced by Steve Harris. Now, the original cover art was very historic because it was the first Iron Maiden album ever with no Eddie on the cover. It was basically the official bootleg, a very early form of that official bootleg style where you had a plain white cover with a logo stamped on there, Live at Donington, and the date. It came with no booklet whatsoever. I remember buying it and thinking, did I get ripped off? There's no booklet here. And that's the way it was. Official bootleg, essentially. Then, of course, the 1998 remaster series came out, and we got remastered, reissued cover art by Mark Wilkinson, which we'll talk about after we're done talking about the songs. So I guess we decided to approach these sets of albums a little differently for each one. Live at Donington, I've decided to go song by song with my comments. And Harrison, how have you decided to do this?
I'm more going to basically talk very briefly in general about the album, and then I've got specific songs I want to spotlight because I went through the live one, dead one set song by song because I went through them first, and then, well, Donington, I didn't have as much unique to say. So it's actually quite good the way we've done it. We'll have a fairly comprehensive look at it.
And that was accidental. Why don't I start then by going song by song through Donington, and then anytime you have a song that you wanted to spotlight, then you have a turn at speaking. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get me back in focus. Hello. I am here. Sorry, this is what happens when you do it live.
I'll just start speaking.
I'm just going to... There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So this is a full live show, unedited, even with these long pauses. I think I kind of like it that way. I don't think the sound is particularly great. I think in general, the band are playing great fast, and Nico is in the driver's seat on this album as far as the speed goes. Bruce's voice is a bit thinner, but he's still giving it his all. We start with Be Quick or Be Dead, and he repeats that scream, that expression that we talked about in our Fear of the Dark episode, where he says, Zach, but this time he says, Zach, pow, or something stupid like that. He was really committed to the bit.
He's just snarling away.
He's just snarling away, but he was really committed to that bit. But great opening scream on Be Quick or Be Dead. You can imagine, this is Donington. I don't know how many people that was, but that was a big gig.
I think I read it was about 80,000 from memory.
So there you go. Opening track in front of 80,000 people, and it's impressive. Number of the Beast is the second track. One thing I really like about this track is when he sings "Satan's work is done, Donington." It just rolls off the tongue so well, "Dun Donington." First time I heard it, it just tickled my funny bone, and that's the beauty of live versions. Sometimes there's just something that you look forward to hearing every time you play a live version. I will point out that I found the bass on this track and this album in general very rinky-dinky, as we've been calling it, or as I've been calling it. Wrathchild, nice surprise. Bruce's voice at this point is kind of perfectly suited to the song with the raspy bits. It's just nice to hear Wrathchild again.
Yeah, Wrathchild is also the one song that appears on Donington that doesn't appear on the Live One Dead One set, although it does appear on a live B-side we'll get to later. I guess now that I'm speaking, I'll just talk briefly about Donington in general. I think it has a much stronger identity as a live album than the Live One Dead One because it's from one show. It's live at Donington. Bruce makes reference to Donington a number of times. So it just has a bit more presence on the shelf, I feel. Bruce's singing, like you mentioned, it is a bit thinner, but he's got his range restored from the 88 tour sort of low point. And in general, compared to out of basically Donington, Dead One, Live One, I think Bruce's singing is best here on Donington. Regarding the production, and this is something we'll get into a bit with Live One and Dead One. So Steve Harris was basically the producer for all of three of these, and Live One and Dead One got a bit of flack because they were very thin sounding, especially compared to Live After Death, the production. There was speculation that Steve Harris was trying to get sort of a bootleggy feel with them, and I can sort of hear that there. But it seems he may have taken a little bit of feedback for Donington. It sounds a little fuller, a little not as thin as the others, the production, even if it is sort of a bit far off from the high point of Martin Birch's Live After Death. Like you mentioned, there are some long pauses, so it can be a bit of a tough listen sometime if you're listening to this on the CD player, because The Evil That Men Do is 7 or 8 minutes, and half of that track is just a Afraid to Shoot Strangers speech, and then after Iron Maiden you've got literally more than 3 minutes of just crowd noise and crowd noise and crowd noise before the encores kick off. Now you could think, well, you can just go and skip this. Well, on my CD player this was in the pre-track gap. So in order to skip to the start of the song that you wanted to listen to, you'd have to skip forward, and then you'd have to skip back to the start of that song, which is just a little bit too effort, because not only do I have to walk over there, I have to hit skip and I have to hit back. And yeah, so I'm just going to complain about, I like that it's the whole show, but I wish they could have done a little bit of trimming in places like the gap between Iron Maiden and the encores.
Counterpoint, it's rare that we get that kind of gap on a live album, but it does kind of put you in the moment of how long that crowd was really waiting for the band to return to the stage after that. It's nerdy factual for me. And Chris Sarr, thank you for watching. It's a good evening here. I hope it's a good morning in Australia. All right, I'll continue running through the tracks, continuing on from Here to Eternity. I never particularly cared for this track, but Bruce asks to see everybody's hands in the place. Come on! He also says, you can sing and all that stuff. And, this is that kind of song where the crowd joins in on the chorus. The backing vocals on this version of the chorus would be Steve. I think that Adrian is sorely missed. Davey's solo, though, I think that might be better than the album version.
It's why you say Adrian's sorely missed. I don't think Adrian ever did this song.
No, you're sorry. I'm sorry. You're right.
Although, in general, his backing vocal presence would be missed.
I am sorry. Backing vocals would be Steve. That is correct. I jumped ahead in my notes for Can I Play With Madness, where I said that the backing vocals would have sounded a lot better with Adrian. But Can I Play With Madness is the next track. And right away, Bruce kind of takes me out of the moment when he goes, it's been a long day. And he sounds tired and worn out from the travels. And I'm like, oh shit, now I feel tired. And I'm at that age, right? But then he redeems himself. The night is going to go on even longer. I promise you that. Well, it's not exactly true. The night went on for a couple of hours, I suppose, not as long as the day. I never liked this intro. I'm sorry, Bruce. And like I said earlier, the chorus without Adrian is flat and weaker. And I I wrote in my notes here that this song could have been dropped from the set after Adrian left, and maybe should have been dropped after Adrian left.
Well, to sort of jump ahead a little to a real live one, I found this Donington performance of Can I Play With Madness sort of notably livelier than the live one version. And I particularly liked how Bruce was adding a lot of that No Prayer, Fear of the Dark rasp as he was singing the voices.
Okay.
So the verses.
It's point and counterpoint this evening, which is very good. Moving on to Wasting Love. I find that Dave and Yannick never quite sound in sync when they're doing that guitar harmony, the opening guitar harmony, and they hit the high bend. It just never sounds in sync to me, and I think that holds true for both versions of Wasting Love that we hear tonight. Bruce's voice, though, is great on this. It's a very passionate performance. I like Tail Gunner following the ballad. I like how that opening guitar chug sounds like a Spitfire engine roaring to life, even though it's, we're talking about a tail gunner. I said a Spitfire engine, but that's just the imagery that comes to my mind. Very cool transition into the song, though, with that chugging and sounding like an engine roaring to life. And then we get to The Evil That Men Do. Now, foreshadowing. Harris and I recently recorded an episode.
Yes, we heard it through the grapevine that a certain future co-host of ours had some not too particularly flattering things to say about Bruce singing this song.
Right. So, in other words, I'm going to ask you folks to pay attention to an upcoming episode on, actually, we'll say it's the Virtual 11 episode that this occurs, where Jake, not from State Farm, has his own impressions of these versions of this song, The Evil That Men Do. So, foreshadowing aside, my notes. It sounds like it was well received. I like when he says, Donington, scream for me! Fuck yeah! Just as we go into the song. After the song, and I'm going to let Harrison sort of elaborate on this, but Bruce explained.
Well, I think that this performance of The Evil That Men Do is a disc highlight. I love his Scream for Me Donington intro, and in general, I like the performance a lot. But yeah, he basically, after The Evil That Men Do ends, and there's still like three minutes and some change in the track, he basically goes on to a speech first about, because they're filming this for a VHS, which we'll cover once we're done through with the songs. He basically, he's just like, all right, get a light on that camera over there, and he's like, yeah, that one. Wait, no, not that one. That one over there. He's like,
the R2D2.
Yeah, that R2D2 over there. That camera. He said, and he basically went on to say that how that was one of the cameras that captured Linford Christie's Olympic run, and that now it's shooting them on, I think he said 35mm film, and then he goes into a speech.
I'm sorry, Harrison. I this has never happened before. We have to thank Ryan Potter for his donation tonight, a $5 donation. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Harrison. I'm taken aback here. Thanks for the series,
guys. No, it's a good
guys.
point to interrupt. No worries.
I've been enjoying revisiting these albums and going through my Maiden collection with each episode. Ryan Potter, I hereby dedicate this episode to you. We scream for you, Ryan Potter. Thank you. Thank you so much. Harrison, please continue.
Yes, the rest of the speech after that, after he singles out that camera, is to do with the intro to Afraid to Shoot Strangers and how people generally don't like to shoot other people.
Correct. It's a song about how shitty war is, and it's started by politicians and finished by ordinary people who don't want to kill anybody. I put that this is a fairly unremarkable live version. Sounds thinner than studio. Then we move on to Fear of the Dark, which is weird to hear this song in the middle of the set. But back then it was like, cool, they're playing Fear of the Dark. I'm glad to hear that they're playing this song.
They did Number of the Beast second here.
Yeah, right. Like, we're seeing some interesting set list variations here. But yeah, with 2025 perspective, it is really weird to hear Fear of the Dark at this point of the set. Back then it was like, cool, they're playing Fear of the Dark. Then we move on to Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. The crowd is enthusiastic. We must remember that even though I don't think this is a particularly great song, we must remember that the crowd there clearly really loved Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. I don't know if you wanted to insert a rebuttal here or not.
I love Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. As you know, I've got more to say about these 90s versions when we get to a real live one.
Okay. I'm just going to leave that comment. Thank you, buddy. That's amazing. The Clairvoyant. No song intro for this one. Rinky-dink bass and all. Bruce does a bit of cheerleading in the middle that I enjoy. Moving on to the next song. This is a song about sudden death, or not. Heaven Can Wait. It's hard to hear everything Bruce says. I get the impression that he's saying a lot of funny things, kind of mumbling under his breath during a lot of these songs. Here's a word from Nico, and then Nico comes in with his trademark, "Oi!" which who doesn't love that, eh? Pretty good live version. Another thing that Bruce says in the middle of the song is, yes, rock fans, but who are they anyway? During the whoa, whoa segment. I like that it's a playful live version. We've talked about this, or we will talk about this, I should say, in episodes of Bruce's live stylings versus Blaze's. It might have been yourself that said that Blaze wasn't as comical with his song intros and so on. Bruce is very comical on a lot of Maiden songs, and it kind of, this is probably a good point just to riff on this moment, on this thought for a moment. I listen to these albums a heck of a lot. I always do. When we do these shows, I listen to these albums like 10, 12, 13 times. No lie. Last time I listened to these albums was on the way to the cottage. And every once in a while, Bruce's comedic song intros or mumblings kind of took me out of the moment, where it's like, this is Iron Maiden, you know? This is Iron fucking Maiden. And sometimes I felt maybe Bruce took it a bit too far on the jokey side. I don't know. That's just, we're nitpicking here because we're trying to dive into these albums really, really as deep as we can. And I'm sharing the thought that I had yesterday when I last played live at Donington. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Heaven Can Wait. On to the Run to the Hills. You know this one. Don't have to say it, is what Bruce says. And once again, I think the guitar sounded really thin. Another one of those moments in a live version that I love is the upcoming version of 2 Minutes to Midnight, when Bruce kind of snarls out, "See those bombs and bullets!" You know the part, right? I love that part. Then we have the very long gap after Iron Maiden. Bruce commends the crowd for sleeping in shit for days to get here. I know. Then we go on to Hallowed Be Thy Name. Excellent live version, although Bruce's voice is raspier and thinner than the last time we heard them do this song. Trooper, I found the bass very rinky-dink once again. Sanctuary is where he introduces the band, or the toilet crew, as he calls them. And one of my favorite Nico intros, of course, old flat nose himself, Nico McBrain. He does a different intro for Nico on the upcoming albums that I will share. And on this track, Bruce confesses that they were all nervous that day, which is kind of like this nice little candid moment, I guess just because it was such a big gig. And then finally, we have Running Free with Adrian Smith. Now, funny story here is, for decades, basically, I had no idea that Adrian Smith was on this track because he's not introduced properly. As Harrison informed me, Bruce says, "All right, hey, you may recognize this reprobate." And without the home video version, I had no idea what he was saying. So what I interpreted is, this is funny, folks. We have Nico doing the boom, 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 boom beat. And what I heard Bruce say, because I didn't know he said reprobate, "You may recognize this rapper beat." And then midway through the song, he says to Adrian, "I think you're doing fucking great. How long has it been? 4 years?" First ever appearance of the current Iron Maiden lineup, which would not officially form until...
Yes, this is an iconic moment that I feel has sort of like not been overshadowed, but people don't, at least like fans like me who have lived and grown with the reunion era, we don't realize just how iconic and amazing this is for Adrian Smith to make a return to Iron Maiden and for them to have 3 guitars on stage for this one song. Before it became the norm, I wager this would be one of the most iconic moments in Iron Maiden history. And like you said, he's not introduced as Adrian Smith. Among Bruce's mumblings and sort of emotionally overcome attempts to articulate himself, you can very briefly catch that he introduces him as H, which is Adrian Smith's nickname in the band. It's just the letter H.
And you know
So
what?
it's still,
When he was saying that, I thought that he was like doing another jokey thing because he goes, "Hey, hey," or something like that. And I thought he was like doing this jokey thing where he was like struggling to breathe or whatever. Because without the video, you don't know. And Jake, your ears must have been burning because we talked about you a few minutes ago when we covered the evil that men do. Jake. You might have to
well,
rewind.
we'll get to Jake's comment there actually when we get to a real dead one. But the guitar solos on Running Free sound phenomenal. Like, I don't know how much rehearsals they did for this, but they are absolutely locked in. Like it's really, really tight, and it sounds amazing with the three guitars.
So that's all I have to say about the album itself. Do we want to talk about the artwork at this point?
I've got a bit to say about the VHS actually. So, Live
Do
at
that.
Donington was released as a VHS a little bit after the CD release, and this VHS is where the live videos came from. Because a live one and dead one each had a live single attached to them, but the videos came from Donington, even though the performances aren't from Donington. So this is a 1990s video, which means you've got that 1990s slow-mo, that black and white, sometimes black and white and slow-mo at the same time. And similarly, how to Donington could be a tough listen at times with the big gaps. It can be a tough watch because in addition to the slow-mo, the black and white, it wasn't directed by Steve Harris like Maiden England was. There's a lot of shots that are just style over substance. They're like nothing. Like there'll be like these artistic shots of like the crowd, or there'll be shots like from way, way, way back up like one of the lighting rig poles and stuff. It's just a shot of the back of the band. Like there's very few shots of the band. Oh, come on, focus. There's very few shots of the band just doing their thing. Like you don't get like shots of Dave doing his solo sort of thing. So it's a very flashy style over substance film, and it's the only VHS, or it's the only concert film of Iron Maiden's to not get a DVD release. I believe there was one planned around the Maiden England tour, but it never came to be. You know, despite the fact that it hasn't got a DVD release, you can still get some of the tracks in video form here and there. So obviously the two live single videos, Fear of the Dark and Hallowed Be Your Name, they're on Visions of the Beast, the DVD that we'll tackle in a couple months. And in addition, the Donington 1998 remaster and the Live One Dead One packaged together in Donington in 1998. Both of these have enhanced video sections with enhanced video, with basically low quality, probably VHS quality videos of Donington. So you can get Afraid to Shoot Strangers, Heaven Can Wait, and Iron Maiden as well, if you can find a way to dig down into the files and get those videos out.
Thanks, Harrison. So as I mentioned, the original cover art was just white with a stamped logo and the title and date. I sold my copy. I don't have it anymore. I'm assuming Harrison doesn't have a copy. But
I had the chance to buy it for a not unreasonable amount of money, but by this point I already had this, and I'm just like, I don't really need it.
Look at that comment there. Laserdisc, buddy. That's almost as good as DVD. Well, better than DVD, arguably. That's awesome. I'm getting attacked by a mosquito here, so I'm going to take 5. There we go. This is live, folks. Okay, so mosquito destroyed. Artwork by Mark Wilkinson, and you told me that this was the poster for the gig. This was the gig poster originally.
Yes, I don't know if it's a one-to-one cropping of the poster or whether it's, but basically this Bat Eddie was the original poster for this Donington show. Iron Maiden were headlining naturally, so presumably they got their Eddie on there. But yeah, I don't know if it's a one-to-one or whether Mark Wilkinson redid it in the style of the poster. But that's where it's from, basically. And in fact, that Bat Eddie was, I don't know how you're going to be able to see this, but there's a shot of the stage there, and that Bat Eddie was sort of like at the top there above where the lighting rig is. He was sort of like that one of those stage elements that they had.
I've never cared for Bat Eddie. That's my opinion personally. He just looks too much like a generic skeleton to me. I love Mark Wilkinson, though. He's one of my favorite artists, obviously going back to the Marillion days. And I believe this would be his first contribution to the Iron Maiden artwork catalog. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Okay. So let's quickly rate Live at Donington before we dive into a real live one and a real dead one.
All right. So I would give it a 4.25 in spite out of 5 stars, not out of 10, in spite of the long gaps and the sort of I'd say poorly shot VHS for a band. I think it could have been the main release of this time period. I don't think we needed to get Live One and Dead One and Donington. I reckon this was a strong enough show and has a strong enough identity to just be the one release. Dead One does have some cool tracks on it, but there's a lot of bloody live albums from 1993. There's like 4 separate live releases from 1993. And so we decided to cover 3 of them in one show because nobody wants to spend a month on 1990s Iron Maiden live albums.
Okay, and also for context, when these albums came out, we had Van Halen Live Right Here, Right Now, Ozzy Osbourne, the Live and Loud. We had Kiss Alive 3. There are more. But I was inundated with live albums in 1993, and to get Maiden live albums in 1993, I was not actually psyched. So I actually skipped a real live one and dead one, and had this to represent my live Maiden, my follow-up to Live After Death. I had this. I would give this a 4 out of 5, I think. I've been enjoying it a lot lately, despite its flaws, but that's the beauty of this album, is that it's not touched up. It is live, and it is full, as we've been saying. It's got all those gaps and everything else, but it's historic. Adrian Smith on Running Free. Wish I knew that back in the day, but it's never too late.
Yeah, because Adrian doesn't get any credits. There is no pictures, no special guest musicians on this 1998 remaster. And I mean, yeah, at the time, it was still 1998. They had no plans to bring Adrian or Bruce back into the fold and had no idea it was going to happen. But yeah, it's just, he doesn't appear anywhere in this. Or presumably the original release. I'm not sure. I don't have the white one.
There was no booklet. There was nothing in the white one. Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to jump on. I'm going to do a real live one first. I'll give you the opening blurb with the release information and so on. Harrison's going to go through track by track, and then I will add commentary where necessary. I will introduce each track because I was the one that took note of each one's date and location. So a real live one. Throw your mind back to 1993. It is the 22nd of March. And the new Iron Maiden album, a real live one, which basically looks like this, is dropped.
I have the original. I've got the original Live One Dead One set, but this is an EMI pressing, and this is a Capitol pressing. So if Tim was an Iron Maiden fan, he'd be tearing his hair out. But yeah, I do have the full set of the original releases.
Excellent. So this one here, we're going to do each track date by date, but it was recorded between the 15th of August and the 12th of September 1992. Man, I can't speak tonight. No Fear on the Road tour. Produced by Steve Harris, artwork by a returning Derek Riggs. They took the step here not to repeat any songs from Live After Death, which kind of makes sense in terms of value, but in terms of a live album, Harrison will have an opinion on that. Production is raw. I'll let Harrison take it from here with Be Quick or Be Dead from the 15th of August, 92, Super Rock Festival in Mannheim, Germany.
Yeah, so a lot of the things Mike pointed out, various dates on the Fear of the Dark tour, so they presumably cherry-picked the best dates. There's a fair few from Helsinki, so that was probably a good show. Produced solely by Steve Harris. Actually, well, I don't know if 100... I know it was definitely produced by Steve Harris. I don't know if Nigel Green had any input. I don't think so. I think it was all Steve, because Steve writes in the liner notes about his time recording this. So noticeably thinner production than Live After Death, as I sort of alluded to earlier. There is speculation he was going for a more bootleggy sound. And yes, the songs are only post Live After Death songs, which is somewhere in time through Fear of the Dark. I like this. It gives it a sort of a bit of an identity, and it's good value as well. Like when I want to listen to 90s Iron Maiden live, I can reach for this and I can put it on without having to worry about thinner versions of Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast cropping up. That being said, I know this was recorded on the Fear of the Dark tour, but I would have liked more Somewhere in Time and No Prayer for the Dying material. But yes, so Be Quick or Be Dead. Mike, where was this recorded?
As I said, Be Quick or Be Dead was recorded in the Super Rock Festival in Mannheim, Germany in the 15th
Oh,
of
sorry,
August,
I missed that bit.
My only comment here was that Bruce does that "you zack zap pow" intro, that
Yes.
thing that he's been riffing on. Then we go to From Here to Eternity from the 20th.
Well, Be Quick or Be Dead, I'll just quickly say it's a solid performance, great scream. It's got it's nice to hear the rasp in all the right places.
Excellent. Track 2, From Here to Eternity, 25 August 92, from Valby Holland, Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yes. The chorus is far better here with much more crowd and much less AC/DC. One of my favorite things about these live versions, like I'm not a huge fan of From Here to Eternity, but I always get a major kick out of Bruce's "Start your engines, Davey," right after the crowd interaction in the middle of the song and right before Davey launches into his solo. That's one of my favorite bits on the album.
I love that too, but my notes say that the chorus was very shouty. Track 3, Can I Play with Madness, 2nd September 92 at, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, Den Bosch in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I find this one a bit lackluster vocally. As I said, I find Donington's version to be a fair bit more livelier and engaging. This one, I think, didn't have to be on the album. There were other... I have seen them once, Chris, the Future Star tour. When we get to the B-sides, there were some other tracks that could have been on here instead, and I think that this version of Madness, didn't need to be on the album.
Okay, then we move on to Wasting Love, which I'm going to give a shout out to one of my other co-hosts, Mr. Jex Russell, Jex Rambo, who helped us translate the French. So this is Wasting Love, 5 September 1992 at Grand Hall de la Villette, Paris, France. And Bruce speaks French. And Jex translated for us. Good evening. This is the first time I've spoken French in a year and a half. Very dangerous. We have a new album, yes? Fear of the Dark, yes. This song, it's a bit different for us doing this type of song, but it's important to us because it's from the heart. Love is not just a man fucking a friend. Love is in the head, in the heart, in all its forms. Wasting Love.
Yeah, I still don't care for the song, but this live version is a little better than the studio version. Yeah, it would be a female friend, I think, was the implication as well.
Yeah. Yep, that's the way I read it too. Tail Gunner. Tail Gunner, funny enough, is recorded the previous day. Wasting Love was 5 September. Tail Gunner is 4 September in Switzerland. Lausanne, Switzerland.
Right, so it's more energetic than the studio version, and it's live, but like I hate Tail Gunner. This version is like a -9 out of 10 instead of a -10 out of 10.
And as Harrison apologizes as the tomatoes are thrown at him, I'm also going to apologize for butchering all of these names, okay? So please, I'm just an ignorant Canadian boy. The Evil That Men Do, which Jake, not from State Farm, had plenty to say about in an upcoming episode. Watch for that. 17th of August, 92 at Forest National, Brussels, Belgium.
Right, so I really, really love this thing they did with The Evil That Men Do in the 90s and into the 2000s. Davey's doing these sort of screechy riff accentuations where I can't possibly even attempt to replicate it with my mouth, but he's basically running his fingers up the string like that.
It's called a pick scrape. It's a pick scrape.
Yeah, that
and it's basically, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I was listening to that and craving it on the way to the cottage yesterday. But you know, they're playing the riff.
I love what that does for the song. Like, I love these 90s versions of The Evil That Men Do, and even the reunion versions, they do it too. I love those pick scrape accentuations. Bruce's restored range here makes this definitely a much more enjoyable listen than the Maiden England 88 version as well.
Man, Harrison, don't you just love it when we come together with the exact same? It just helps me appreciate the love of music and the love of this band and the love of these songs even more when we both just hit upon the exact same moment of the exact same song. Afraid to Shoot Strangers. A similar intro to the last one, but we'll say it here is a song about war, and just to make a mental note to say war is bullshit. And people who are making you go to war are usually politicians, and the people going to war are usually ordinary people. And this is a song about an ordinary person who doesn't want to kill anybody. This was recorded in Stockholm, Sweden at the Harris Globe Arena.
Right, so this isn't a patch on the Blaze Bayley version. I'm not a huge fan of Bruce's takes on. Well, I say Bruce's takes on this song. It's originally his song, but Blaze made it his own. It is live, so that means I prefer it to the studio version. At the part where Bruce is going like afraid to shoot strangers, there are some really prominent keyboards high up in the mix, which is a crazy thing to hear on an Iron Maiden album. Live album rather, because you like, unlike Black Sabbath where you listen to them live, you'll always hear the keyboards underneath, Children of the Sea, the boo 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 underneath. You never really hear keyboards underneath Iron Maiden, and to have them so prominent, I like it. I like having keyboards in my Iron Maiden, but I also like Iron Maiden how they are normally. It's just a really cool moment to listen out for in the background there.
Michael Kenny on keyboards, who was Steve's tech.
Right.
And yes, here's that synchronicity. I had the exact same. It's that part where he goes, afraid to shoot strangers. And you can hear almost like this organ sound
like
behind Bruce.
It's like, do.
Yeah. Bang. Yeah. 100%. Next, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which ironically is at the Dickens. Oh, wait, no.
Is that the writing credit?
The writing credit got mixed in with the location, with the Ice Hall in Helsinki, Finland, and we're going to see lots of Helsinki tracks coming.
Yes, this is an awesome version. I love the crowd interaction, but those guitar fills that I love during the bridge, that and then there's like in the background. I love those, and I love them even more live. They just pop even more.
Excellent. Heaven Can Wait from the Monsters of Rock Festival, Reggio nell'Emilia, Italy.
Yeah, right. So the Reggio Emilia Italian show was a sort of a high point vocally. I've seen bootlegs of that, and he's definitely singing great there. And yeah, this is a really fun version of Heaven Can Wait. Bruce's voice soars on the bridge.
Excellent. Next up, The Clairvoyant, 27th August 92 at the Ice Hall again in Helsinki.
Yeah, so I think this is generally a middle-of-the-road performance of The Clairvoyant as far as things are concerned. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing particularly bad about it, I can say. Okay,
I want to bring something up here. Is Helsinki one of the coolest names of a city to hear Bruce shout during these? Helsinki! Doesn't it just sound great when Bruce shouts it?
Yes, it rolls off the tongue quite,
it really does.
Quite well.
See, man, this is the thing, is that we're just trying to appreciate these albums and share our love. Album closes with Fear of the Dark from the Helsinki Ice Hall once again.
Yes, this is the live single version. This was my favorite version of Fear of the Dark, far and away. This version of Fear of the Dark and Fear of the Dark itself was my favorite Iron Maiden song until I knew too many Iron Maiden songs to be able to pick a favorite. I love this version, and I love that art there as well. That made my top 11 Iron Maiden artworks, as did the A Real Live One art itself. We might as well look at the art now. I love this art, the red, the blue, the gray, yeah. And, this is something else that's really cool about these albums. So this is 1993. Look at that, clear CD cases with actual art. In the case of a live one, it's the same base Eddie art, but on Dead One, which I'm getting ahead of myself, but we're talking about that. On Dead One, it's the disc art, which hasn't appeared anywhere else yet. That's sort of Eddie ripping his head apart. And this is 1993. Clear CD cases were not common by any stretch. Mike, I know you were there. You can probably back me up on that. But Iron Maiden, they have always been about the physical product, and they gave us a really good-looking product that looks great even today with those clear CD cases. They were definitely ahead of the curve there on that one.
Not only can I back you up on that, but I can also add more information to that, because back in 1992, 93, when those clear CD spines were coming out, they weren't necessarily smooth, clear, fully transparent ones like yours. They were ridged like a black CD case.
Like the old mold.
So it was actually hard. I don't have the copy, but it was actually hard to read that spine thing. Motley Crue Self-Title is another one that came out with a similar opaque, clear but opaque plastic. As far as this goes, this is numbered, as you can see. I don't know how many they would have printed. It doesn't say, but there it is. There's my number. It's the only one in the world with that number. I always liked this cover better than the actual real live one cover. I don't think I have anything to add, but we are going to discuss the B-side, Hooks in You, which is live at the Wembley Arena, London.
Actually, do you want to give our final thoughts on a live one now or after the single?
Let's do the B-side first. That's usually how we do.
Yeah.
So all I had to add with this one is a bloody big side of Polk, if you asked me, and that it was included as a bonus track on the 2 CD Fear of the Dark, which means finally we have completed our Fear of the Dark cycle by including that bonus track, because my OCD, I really wanted to cover it in that episode, but we decided that B-side did not fit with that. It fit with this. So here we are. We've got Fear of the Dark, Hooks in You live.
I don't have much to add. It wasn't one of my favorite songs on No Prayer for the Dying, and like most No Prayer for the Dying songs done live, there's a lot of rasp missing that sort of takes a bit of the sting and the venom out of the singing. So yeah, a B-side it was, and a B-side it should remain.
Rare though, so track something down if you want to hear Hooks in You live. So not going to play it again. Ranking this album on a scale of 1 to 10, I am going to say I think a real live one is, I don't know, maybe a 6.5 out of 10.
I'd give it like a 3.75 or a 3.9 maybe. I'm very fond of a lot of the songs from this era, more so than the average fan, but I think it's a bit too heavy on Fear of the Dark stuff. I would have preferred a bit more Somewhere in Time stuff, and the production is a bit thin.
Well, as far as Somewhere in Time stuff goes, we might have just the thing to scratch your itch when we get to some of the B-sides for A Real Dead One. Are we ready to move on to A Real Dead One?
I believe so. Yeah, Jake, that's what
we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. But we did not cover it in our Fear of the Dark episode, was what I was getting at, and Harrison agreed that we would talk about it here, so there we go. Real Dead One. So the plan always was to release that first album, and then
in the liner notes to this version from 1993, Steve actually writes, and he talks about how he's excited for you to hear the upcoming A Real Dead One. So A Real Dead One was both planned before Bruce's departure, and it was also named before Bruce's departure. And the name A Real Dead One was awfully prophetic. I don't know why they'd name a live album A Real Dead One, but name it they did.
I never cared for the Real Live One and Real Dead One pairing, simply because a Real Live One worked for me, but a Real Dead One didn't work for me. But I think when Bruce announced that he was leaving the band, that put a damper on the whole affair for me. Like, I already wasn't really psyched about an Iron Maiden live album coming out during that summer, and then Bruce leaves the band, and it's like, what's my incentive to buy A Real Dead One? So once again, I skipped it and just ended up with Donington for the longest time. So the Real Dead One was released on the 18th October 1993, and was recorded between the 25th of August 92 and the 4th of June 93. So this time we're opening up with The Number of the Beast. This is from Copenhagen, Denmark, 25th of August 92. Harrison, your thoughts?
Right, so A Real Dead One in general quickly. So the Real Live tour, basically, I'm not 100% sure whether the tour was booked before Bruce's departure and they had obligations to fulfill it, or whether Rob Smallwood wanted to roll Bruce out for one final hurrah.
No, it was booked.
It was booked and they had obligations. And Bruce has spoken about how dour of a mood it was on stage, because he couldn't go on stage and be like, oh, yeah, this is great. And then everyone would be like, you prat, you're leaving. And he didn't want to be like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I know I'm leaving and everything, blah, 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 and just put a whole damper on the mood. So it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Steve alleges that Bruce was underperforming and sort of just like mumbling into the microphone on the low profile shows where there was no press. Bruce refutes that, but this was probably set at a time when there was a lot of barbs trading back and forth between Bruce and the Maiden camp. Bruce said some not nice things about Maiden after leaving the band. So they might have all got caught up in the emotion. The versions on here are not mumbled into the microphone, but some of them are a little lifeless. It's got the same thin production as a real live one. And the song selection is basically everything from before Live After Death. So the classic years, with a bit of an emphasis on the first album with Paul Di'Anno. The performances aren't bad per se. They're just lacking that special something that brings the highs, that sort of like the highs of Live After Death. These are a definite step down from Live After Death. And for some reason, young Harrison decided this was the first Iron Maiden live CD I was going to buy. I had some of the DVDs, but I was just like, right, I want an Iron Maiden live CD. I'm going to get a real dead one. But yeah. So, yeah, as Mike pointed out, this was recorded mainly 1993 on the Real Live tour, but there were a few songs from Helsinki 1992 that made it onto this. So, The Number of the Beast, it's not too bad, all things considered, going into this live album. I thought it would be a lot more lifeless and flat from Bruce than it was. Although, as Mike said, Number of the Beast's a 1992 version. Maybe that had something to do with it because it was still Fear of the Dark tour. Now, here's another very divisive thing about this album. Yannick Gers takes on Adrian Smith's guitar solo. They've often been derided by Smith Murray purists. They're not the solos I fell in love with, but there is still something to enjoy with them that Yannick brings.
Okay. That's another interesting observation because it was something I was thinking about. A lot of the time, Yannick, he improvises all those solos when he's up there live. And a lot of the time, it almost sounds like, I hate to say this, hitting random notes, where he's just like, almost like a Nigel Tufnell kind of thing sometimes. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's part of the appeal of Yannick Gers. Like,
yeah, but it happens a
Yannick
lot.
Gers. Like, if Yannick Gers was another Adrian, imagine having, just two Adrians in the band now. It would be redundant, sort of thing. Now that we have three
Number of the Beast, I know the solo on the Number of the Beast is not one that I particularly care for his version of it, but I don't know. Moving on to the Trooper, which is Helsinki, Finland. I said that the Trooper, it's kind of neat to hear it this early on the album, but it works for me in this slot.
Yeah, it's a 1992 recording as well, although Bruce is definitely a bit less vivacious than he has been on previous renditions of the song.
27th of August, 92, correct. And then we head into a whole bunch of Di'Anno songs. Prowler, I'm not going to say it because I can't pronounce it. Marino, Italy, 30th of April, 93. Transylvania from the 17th of April, 93 in Essen, Germany. And Remember Tomorrow from the same gig in Essen, Germany.
Right, let's take it from the top then. Prowler, it's a real cool deep cut. I found it really funny and really odd that this is Bruce's farewell tour and they're rolling out a whole bunch of Di'Anno tracks. It's just like, hey, Bruce, we're saying goodbye to you. Now go sing all these songs that you never sang on originally, sort of thing. It's a cool deep cut, Prowler, but it's a far cry from the Beast Over Hammersmith version. However, I will say that it is better than Prowler 88, although the bar that Prowler 88 sets to clear is a tripping hazard. I think it's a bit disappointing Bruce didn't rasp more on Prowler because I think it would have really fitted that song. Transylvania, not only do they make Bruce sing a whole load of Di'Anno tracks, they even put an instrumental in there for his tour. I think it's a bit odd to be like, hey Bruce, we're doing an instrumental, but maybe the band members that were staying just wanted to have a bit of fun on stage by themselves for one song or something and forget that Bruce was leaving. I love Transylvania. I'll never complain about Iron Maiden playing an instrumental, let alone it appearing on a live album. Remember Tomorrow, I don't particularly care for Bruce's attempts to sing softly, and I think that started with this version of Remember Tomorrow. I've never really liked Bruce's soft stuff.
Interesting, because I noted that I thought Remember Tomorrow might be the softest version of this released to date. And I had a thought, and I didn't put this in my notes because I don't have any original source material left, but I think I read at the time that Maiden tweaked this set list from their original plan after Bruce announced that he was leaving. They tweaked it and added tracks like Transylvania. I don't know. I can't remember. I wish I could tell you. I don't have my old rock magazines anymore where I would have read that information, but that's what my memory says. Moving on, 9th of April, 93, Arnhem, Netherlands, Where Eagles Dare. Whatever the problem, Clint Eastwood is going to fix it. Where Eagles Dare!
Iconic intro, and Where Eagles Dare is a disc highlight. It does a lot of the carrying to make a Real Dead one. You know, when you buy that, you're buying it a lot for Where Eagles Dare. It's ironic that the hardest song to sing on this album is the one that ends up being the best performance, but Bruce is doing really well. This was the only live version of the song officially released until Nights of the Dead, like 20 years or something later. Actually, I think 15. Let me do some math for a minute. 1993 to 2018. I think that's, let's see, 25, if my math serves correctly. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to look mighty foolish. But
take care, Jake from Not State Farm. Jake, you do have to rewind and hear our comments on The Evil That Men Do. Okay. Get rid of that. Moving
now
on.
that Jake is gone, yeah, he's totally wrong about The Evil That Men Do. That's a joke.
I wish I could pronounce these places. Somewhere in Switzerland on the 27th of May, 1993. I'd rather not butcher this name. So just somewhere in Switzerland, May 1993. We have Sanctuary. Go ahead, and then I'll add my comment.
So I'm generally sick of Bruce's version of this song, but I speak as a modern fan that has had a smorgasbord of Maiden live material. This would have been the first live album release of Sanctuary, because it was one of the encores of Maiden England that didn't make it onto the show, and it didn't make it onto the Live After Death audio version earlier. But I had the Live After Death DVD. I've listened to Maiden England '88, so I'm a bit sick of Sanctuary, but this might be my favorite Bruce version of it. However, I particularly like that we get to go through this real quick band intro instead of this on and on from the law-ing for on and on and on, basically.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that particular thing. I put that track 7 seems like an early placement, but that's because this is a single CD, and the drawback to the Real Live Dead One set is that you're not getting an Iron Maiden gig. You're getting it, all the newer songs crammed on one disc, all the older songs crammed on the other. So you lose that continuity. I put that
even when they put out a Real Live Dead One and put it together, they kept the two discs separate rather than mixing up the track listing to represent a show.
Correct. I put that I liked that Yannick's solo was a different touch. Davies is different because it follows Yannick's, so it's different by necessity. The band intros come here, and they're slightly different. He says about Nico, and finally, what do you call those things? Tubs? Him on the drums, and he also plays pasty cymbals for which they don't pay him enough money. Sanctuary.
Right, so moving on to Running Free, which was recorded.
Running Free, I have the 27th of May, 93 in Switzerland once again. Yes, same as Sanctuary, yes.
So Running Free, it's an all right version, not a patch on the Live After Death version. I like the short crowd intro compared to the long Dr. Long Beach messed up my hearing. The intensity is dialed a bit back from 85. And interestingly, it's all Steve on backing vocals here, no Adrian.
Yes. Run to the Hills, 5th of April, 93, from Ostrava in the Czech Republic.
Yeah. As I was sort of saying with Number of the Beast, this version of Run to the Hills, it wasn't as flat or as lifeless as I remembered.
Okay. 2 Minutes to Midnight, Paris, France. I neglected to do the date on that one, so I apologize.
10th of April, 1993.
There you go.
I think it's far from the best version of this now overplayed song.
The Donington one's way better. Back to Helsinki for Iron Maiden.
Yes, a 1992 version. Yep. It's fine. There's nothing special about this particular version of Iron Maiden. They had a Trietti come up behind the stage that you can see on the Donington video.
I hate Trietti, but that's an aside from a previous episode. Finally, the album closes on Hallowed Be Thy Name, 4th of June, 93, from Olympic Stadium in Moscow. First track we've had from Moscow.
Right, so Bruce has his range back, and he's hitting the notes, but I feel he's just a little behind on the energy and the intensity. Like the band is like here, and he's like maybe here. I think that the Donington version of Hallowed is a lot better.
Okay, and then we move on because there are more songs on the Hallowed Be Thy Name single. Let's take a quick look at that artwork, okay? So what we have here is Devil Eddie. You can see he's got devil horns, and he is impaling Bruce Dickinson with his fork right through the chest. Look at Bruce, he's going like, oh, I'm dead. Oh, and this is kind of a throwback. I was going to say this.
I
is
was
kind
just
going to
say we now know that we'll cover next episode that that's not exactly how Bruce died.
Oh, we'll get into that, but definitely a throwback to the Maiden Japan Eddie, where he decapitated Paul Di'Anno. We're killing the lead singer once again. Not one of my favorite covers, but it's so rare that you get a painting of a band member on a cover, so it's cool for that reason. Hallowed Be Thy Name. We have 3 tracks on this single, but the Trooper is on the album. So what we get is 2 bonus tracks. They are Wasted Years from Bremen, Germany, 16 April 93, and Wrathchild from Helsinki, Finland, 27 August 92.
Right. So Wasted Years. This was the only tour they played the song without Adrian in the band. They didn't do it on the No Prayer tour or during the Blaze years. The restored range from Bruce makes this a bit more of an enjoyable listen than the Maiden England version. Yannick plays Adrian's solo fairly close to the record, although he throws in a few improvisationary licks here and there. Wrathchild's a solid version, similar to Donington.
Okay. Well, that wraps it up for the tracks. Let's talk about the Real Dead One artwork, shall we?
I've never been a huge fan of this art. It's a bit boring. I like the angle he's going for, like it's radio in hell, but yeah, this is actually one of the very few Derek Riggs Eddies to actually be drawn with red eyes, possibly the only one, though I'd have to go and check.
Until the 1998 remasters.
Yeah, as mentioned, I don't know if that was Derek Riggs going and redoing his art, or whether that was somebody doing art in the style of Derek Riggs, or whether I'd have to check that who did that art and how it was done.
I was distinctly disappointed when this art came out. You can see sort of these Derek Rigg trademarks, like there's a red window and you can see like this kind of like demonic dancing happening. So that's like 2 separate motifs from Derek Riggs that we see frequently. Eddie is drooling. That's another thing that Derek Riggs did frequently. He's also drooling on the real live one as well. I don't care for the album cover personally, but I like this one. That's the one I like right there. Oh, look, drool. Eddie drools a lot. I really like the airy homage here. I really like that. I wish that was just the cover.
Not the last time a band member would be drawn as Eddie. Run to the Hills live single.
Yes. Shall we rate this one on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yes. So I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, with the caveat that the deep cuts and Where Eagles Dare are doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that. Okay, Never in my life have I thought, gee, I want to listen to a classic Iron Maiden track from Before Live After Death. Let's go listen to the Dead One version.
I'm gonna back you up on this. I'm gonna say the exact same rating, 7 out of 10. It's not; these aren't go-to albums for me. I played them a lot these last 2 weeks because we had to do this. Live at Donington is the one that I would go back to, but Real Live Dead One, they're probably going to get filed away and not listened to again for a long time, because we're only up to the year 1993 in 50 years of Iron Maiden. We have a long way to go, and a lot of those are live albums to go. And we'll talk about tomorrow in a minute here. There's going to be something cool. Dan. There's going to be something cool happening tomorrow. But Bruce Dickinson, he's out of the band. There's a final gig that was also a live release, which I happen to have here. And we're going to be doing another live episode. I believe we are going to be doing it next Friday.
That's the plan.
Sorry?
That's the plan.
That's the plan. So we're going to be doing Bruce's final gig, Raising Hell. on 50 Years of Iron Maiden next week. That's about it for this episode. Real quick, we're doing another episode of Grab a Stack of Rock tomorrow morning. We're having Jex Russell back. Sorry, Harrison?
Yeah, but you are. I won't be there.
So. Harrison will not be there. Harrison,
but in my place will be the only Jex Russell, who is a far more energetic co-host.
And we're going to be doing something called Ask Jex Anything, because Jex hasn't been on the show since he kind of did a little bit for our 100th episode, but he really hasn't been on the show since Number of the Beast at the beginning of the year, and that was a recorded episode. So Jex is here to say, Jex is back and he told you so. He is eager to talk about what he's been up to, and so we're calling it Ask Jex Anything. This will be airing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is going to be a tie-in episode. We're going to be talking about music and mental health. And just as a spoiler alert, I'm going to show you some of the CDs that we'll be talking about tomorrow, because there's two here that you might recognize if you're an Iron Maiden fan. This here is an upcoming album that we're going to be talking about on 50 Years of Iron Maiden, but I'm also going to be talking about it tomorrow on tomorrow morning's special music and mental health episode, The Return of Jex Russell, The X Factor. Why? I guess you'll just have to tune in tomorrow. And yet another one here, Blaze Bayley. The war that album artwork just screams mental health right there. But there we go. The War Within Me, Blaze Bayley. Tune in tomorrow if you want to hear a little bit about these two albums and much more. I have a whole other stack of rock here lined up for tomorrow morning's episode. As for you and I, we're planning on doing this again next Friday for that Raising Hell. I've got to watch this again for the first time in 15 years or something like that. Wish me luck. Harrison, anything else you want to add before we go out?
No, just to say that regarding next week, it isn't just Iron Maiden. There's also one Simon Drake involved with that show. And
Spoiler
you can expect
alert.
Mike will have plenty of things to say about that.
Spoiler alert. Okay, folks. I just want to give another shout out here to Ryan Potter. Thank you so much. That's a first for us here at Grab a Stack of Rock and 50 Years of Iron Maiden. So thank you for just that little boost. It just helps keep this show going because, you know, we invest when we do this show. We invest. I have bought many records just for the purpose of showing them on this show. Maybe that makes me an idiot. But Ryan, guys like you help keep the show going. So I appreciate it very much. As always, we like to go out on a song, and it just so happens that I filmed a brand new drone video this afternoon, and I uploaded it about 30 minutes before showtime. So this is a fun, brand new video that we have not seen on Grab a Stack of Rock before. This is a local band called Hello Hopeless, and it's a song called The Match. So we will see you next week, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Iron Maiden Raising Hell. Take care, everybody. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Ask Jex Anything, Music and Mental Health for even more Iron Maiden. Take care, everyone. See ya.
I never wanted to feel this way, like I meant nothing, yours to blame for everything that I have done. You made me feel like the only one. You can't put this all on me. I only wish that you could see. So get locked thinking you're invincible. Hope it all burns down and leaves nothing left. So get locked thinking you're invincible. I'll be waiting here for you to show yourself when you find out it's me who lit the match. open